thing that ever happened to the farmer. Hello, Yang Gang. Thank you for joining Securing the Bag with Seth Underwood. This is your host, Seth Underwood, in case you were wondering. And boy, do we have a lot to speak about tonight, and very little time to do so because, as we all know, the technological singularity is on its way, and the machine elves wait for no one. But you know what's even closer than the tech singularity is the 2019 summer debates, which are being held June the 26th. That's right, we are 14 days away. Every moment that passed gets us closer to securing the bag. But you know what's even closer than the summer debates is the June 17th. I just found out about this today. Poor People's Forum. This seems to be the biggest story of the day. We have 8 hard-hitting candidates for the presidency coming together to speak about poverty and exploitation of the poor. This is huge. This is going to be the first story that we cover today, but also on the agenda we'll be discussing Biden's continually trying to just sabotage his campaign. Him and Yang have recently gotten into it. The gloves seem to be coming off. We're going to talk about the feud that is boiling there. And we're also going to be speaking a little bit about, let's see here, it was Bernie. He just did a live stream today to speak about democratic socialism. He announced his pledge for a economic bill of rights, which seems to be missing one important policy that only Andrew Yang is providing. So we're going to discuss that as well. But before we get into it, let's just get some quick business done here. I'd like to give a special thanks to my very first patron. You can ask my girlfriend and she will attest that I ran out of the room just walloping in joy the other night. I really, really appreciate the support that you've done. You're really kind of pushing forward and helping me make my point about the kind of future in which freedom of speech, freedom of ability to express oneself can be given by disposable income that we will all have with the universal basic income. So I look so forward to being able to use your support to further this channel in ways that can help make an impact on Andrew Yang's campaign and the universal basic income movement in general. Really, thank you. I cannot thank you enough. I'm working on maybe a pledge to give for my first patrons. I'm thinking this is what I'm working on. Maybe the first 10 will have access to play Striking Vipers with me. Depending on how good it is, maybe the first 100 patrons will have a one-on-one fight with me in Striking Vipers. So yeah, let's think about that as a pledge. I'm gonna regret that, or will I? I don't know. Free love 2050, right? Along with that as well, I'm still looking for 1,000 subscribers. 1,000 subscribers on this channel will really help the channel grow. 1,000 for $1,000 a month is what I'm calling it. If you are not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and share this with other members of the Yang Gang. The channel will really get bolstered when there are more people talking during the live stream, more people discussing Yang in the daily news and whatnot. So thank you so much for your already given support. let's see here. Is there anything else, just quick business-wise, that I might be missing? I don't think so. How are all of y'all tonight? I hope everything is doing well. I'm just electrified, like every passing day, for real. It's going to get very quick here in just a couple of weeks, so let's get ready for it. Let's just go ahead and move on to the very first piece of news tonight, shall we? The Poor People's Campaign. So this is being hosted by the Poor People's Campaign. It's the Poor People's Forum. Next week is holding what the social justice group says is the largest 2020 presidential forum so far, where candidates take questions and frontrunner Joe Biden has agreed to appear. Senators Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Michael Bennet, as well as Representative Eric Swalwell, Julian Castro, Andrew Yang, Marianne Williamson, and Wayne Messam have also said that they'll be at the June 17th event that's next Monday in Washington, according to the organization. The event has the potential to be an adversarial setting for the 2020 candidates. Reverend William Barber, who co-leads the organization with Reverend Liz Theoharis, said the presidential candidates will take questions directly from them and low-income activists. We cannot have another election cycle like we had in 2016, where we had 26 presidential debates in the primary and general election, and not one focused on systemic voter suppression and gerrymandering, and not one focused on poverty, Barber said. We have to demand that we focus on these issues. The organization said it expects about 1,000 people to attend the three-day gathering that the Presidential Forum is a part of, including members from 40 states along with religious leaders, union representatives, and economists. The Poor People's Campaign also invited President Donald Trump to the town hall, but he is not expected to attend, organizers said. Shocking. Over the next year and a half, the Poor People's Campaign is planning to hold a series of town halls, trainings, and voter registration drives in an effort to mobilize Americans who do not typically vote in presidential elections. So really quick, I'm just going to take a double look here. I think I may be having some technical issues, but I think we're okay. I think we are okay. So, this is huge news. I've been saying for a while now that the debates are where things are really going to kick off, and Andrew Yang himself has said specifically he needs to just get on stage with Biden, because then America will look at Joe Biden and then ask who's the Asian man standing next to him. And obviously, universal basic income and the freedom dividend as a policy is just so powerful that it will immediately derail Joe Biden's campaign if he doesn't derail his campaign himself by then. Speaking of, that's going to bring us right into the feud that Joe Biden and Andrew Yang are currently finding themselves caught in. I'm telling you, like, this is just a really good day for this live stream. I'm looking so forward to the discussion that we're going to be having here. So this is huge because I've expressed a little bit before how I was a little concerned that the moderators of the debates wouldn't necessarily give Yang the spotlight that he needed, because universal basic income has such transformative and impactful kinds of effects on poverty in general, but we know that the types of conversations that's going to happen at the debates aren't going to be centered on those. There's going to be a whole bunch of things, specifically, how do you plan on beating Trump? What's Trump's biggest weakness? More of the identity politics discussion. I'll also talk about the tweet that Andrew Yang made that seemed to have gone a little bit viral, talking about identity politics. A little bit of a sticky situation there, but we'll talk about that too. Now, those concerns that I've expressed about the debates, this is perfect, because this is exactly the type of setting, and it's exactly the type of specific conversation that I think needs to happen. This is perfectly tailored for Andrew Yang, but at the same time, when it says that poverty activists are going to show up, there's also going to be a lot of discussion aimed at Andrew Yang about why the freedom dividend does not stack with current means-tested welfare. So that's going to be a bit of an obstacle, a roadblock, if you will, for him. But overall, this is where he's really going to be able to push forward the idea of universal basic income as transformative for the lives of the people in our country who need it the most. As I've talked about on my Twitter account, our current means-tested welfare system just flat out misses so many people who are in need, who are deemed fit to work. There are incentives involved with our government administration to deny benefits. And, if you've got a system that's based on checking to see if people are worthy of help, and you have to prove that to people, a lot of people are going to be missed. And that's also a big criticism I have of a jobs guarantee program. And all of this is going to start to be spoken about specifically with this forum. It's the main focus. Biden's showing up. This is going to be terrible for Biden. This is going to be absolutely terrible for him. What is he going to say that's going to be able to act? I mean, really, his entire thing up to this point has been, we got to take down Trump. Trump's terrible. And now they're going to ask, hey, well, what do you think about universal basic income? Let's see. What does Biden have to say about a universal basic income? Those who support the idea of, this is from a Newsweek article, I should say. Those who support an idea of a universal basic income are class clueless, quote unquote. Former Vice President Joe Biden said in an interview, universal basic income, a program that would guarantee a minimum income for all Americans, has been gaining popularity as job displacement due to advances in technology continue. A recent Gallup poll found 48% of Americans support a universal basic income for workers who are replaced by artificial intelligence. But Biden, who is rumored to be eyeing a presidential run in 2020, this was like last year, said he does not believe that's the way, quote, America is built, unquote. Instead, it's a concept created by Silicon Valley executives that are missing the point, he said on Crooked Media's Pod Save America, which is hosted by former Obama staffers. Pause right there. First of all, yes, unconditional wealth transfers is definitely what America was built on. Need us forget about the entire incentives that they made, giving free land to people to go out and settle on it and everything. Anyways, let's just continue. Every time someone would lose a job, my dad would say, Joey, a job is about a lot more than just a paycheck. It's about dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be, your kid in the eye and saying, honey, it's going to be okay. That's what it's about, dignity. Getting an annual wage, you sit home and do nothing. You strip people of their dignity. So hold up, Joe Biden. Mr. Joe, Uncle Joe, Creepy Joe, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go there. Hold on. I take it back. I'm not going to be that guy as much as I want to. Maybe I will. I don't know. I'm still trying to get a feel for the tone of this show. He's a bit creepy. Okay, anyways, listen. Biden, come on, bro. First of all, this is a dude saying all of this who's probably going later that day or later in the week that he said this to get money for speaking in front of an audience of people, right? In terms of free money, Biden gets a lot of it. He's got all of his healthcare paid for by the taxpayers. That's nice. And this entire idea about dignity in work, I understand it. There is a nugget of good reasoning to be had there, but he's going about it all wrong. There are people who get money for free, after they invest into Amazon. If you're a shareholder of any of the Fortune 500 companies, you're getting money for free. Do they lack dignity? Do they lack, the kind of pride and enjoyment of just basic life? This is the issue. There's a long needed discussion about work and fulfillment and joy and happiness that we've needed to have as a society for decades now. Really, probably hundreds of years, as this entire thing has been shaping out. I might get more, people may roll their eyes every time I bring this up, but I like to, because it's a conundrum. If we're to believe what Mr. Biden says here, I'm sorry, Senator Biden, ex-Vice President Biden, I guess he's still Vice President Biden. Does he retain the moniker Vice President after he leaves? I'm not sure. What he's saying here, if we're to believe this to be the case, what about Ninja? The Twitch streamer Ninja. Last year, I believe he made $10 million playing video games, Fortnite specifically. Should we be concerned about Ninja? Because really what he's doing is sitting around and playing video games all day. I mean, by any metric, he's probably a couch potato. He seems to stay in good shape, though, so that's good. Should we be concerned about the dignity that Ninja has? I don't think so. Ninja seems to have a pretty good life. And I understand that, yes, having a place in your community and having things that tie you together socially with other people, work facilitates that in many ways. Work is a social gathering, first and foremost, really, for many people. A lot of places, work just doesn't get done. It's basically where you go and hang out for 8 hours a day. I understand the point to be made there, but that's what Andrew Yang says, is we need to develop a system to make sure that, outside of work, you're able to still find fulfilling and meaningful interactions. And that's what human-centered capitalism is for. Just because you get $1,000 a month doesn't suddenly make you feel worthless. First of all, this isn't just handing out checks to people. That's the main issue, right? The second thing here, what does he say? He says something here, so it's basically he's saying people don't like to get money for nothing. So that is exactly like word for word what Ivanka Trump said when asked about universal basic income in an interview. People love to get money for nothing. Just ask anyone who gets a corporate subsidy. There is corporate welfare, corporate socialism in this country like you would not believe. And they love it, but not for the poor, right? Socialism for the rich, rugged individualism for the poor. That's the saying. Poor people can't get something for nothing, but rich people can. They're more deserving of it. They're more worthy of it. So first, he's saying this as if it is some sort of constant, as if we're giving away the free check. Well, as I've explained before, the reasoning behind the freedom dividend is that it is a thing that we all own. It's a thing that we all take part in because the oil of today's economy, the 5 biggest companies in the world, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, all make their money in one way or another utilizing our data. Every time we walk out of the house with our phone in our pocket, it's being gathered up and used for economic profit, and we don't receive any compensation for that. So one, there is a moral and logical explanation and justification for giving the freedom dividend out to people. Regardless of the effect that it may have after that, that justification remains. 2, to assume that people just get aimless without work, it's true, actually. There's a lot of research and studies to suggest that, men specifically tend to start to self-destruct after a while and all those things. But, that's not the case really if you are also financially well off. We always overlook the fact that there's still financial hardship when you're laid off, and that tends to have a big effect as well. You don't necessarily have the tools at your disposal to go out and better yourself in ways if you're extremely poor. So it infuriates me that Biden has this outlook on it because it's so backwards. Yang is bringing the solutions to the 21st century problems that we're dealing with, and Biden is really having his colors show when he says these things. So he's going to have to confront this Monday, June the 17th, when Yang comes forward and says, I'm for universal basic income. I'm for a technological dividend that all people have an entitled, share of. And Biden's going to say, I don't think that's the case, right? Like, come on. Like, I'm nervous. I am, because as much as this is going to go very far into like pushing what it's going to like mandate what we're talking about in the debates, for sure. It's going to give that tone as we go into the June the 26th debates. It could go very well. It also might not go very well. I don't know. I don't know this Poor People's Campaign. I don't know if, are they lobbyists for... I don't know. I'm hoping that it's going to turn out well. If anyone else has any idea about their background, please share it in the chat. I would be curious to get your thoughts on this too. It's super exciting. We'll go ahead and move on a little bit here on the same topic, really. Biden and Yang have recently kind of gotten into a little bit of a scuffle, a feud, if you will, a fisticuffs, metaphorically. What's happened is when Yang showed up at I believe it was an Iowa Democratic Party type of convention. I should really have this pulled up right here. He walked onto stage to none other than Return of the Mac. And that went a little bit viral as people said, whoever this guy is walking onto stage to Return of the Mac, he's got my vote. He's the coolest candidate, which he is, obviously. The Yang Gang knows that. But he's walked on the stage doing that. He drops the mic almost immediately by pointing out the fact that Biden is absent from this event. He's been absent from many events because, well, let's just be honest, the more that he shows up with the other hard-hitting candidates, the more he's going to tank in the polls. And he comes out and actually responds to Andrew Yang. He doesn't use Yang's name, I believe, but he points out that, he got some criticism from other candidates for not being present at the event. And he explains that he was at his granddaughter's graduation ceremony, and it was also her birthday, as if those two things stack and make it more important. He said that he, quote, would miss his inauguration for this event. That's a big thing to say, man. And Yang gets onto Twitter and says, I want to pull up the tweet. I should have had it ready. I'm a little unprepared. I'm sorry. But he basically says, listen, I get family priorities, but the country comes first when you're running for president. That's what he said in a nutshell. And it's so true. And what I tweeted out, I said, listen, while Joe Biden is attending his granddaughter's ceremony, Andrew Yang is fighting to put $1,000 into you and everyone you love's hands so that you can go and attend your granddaughter's ceremony instead of having to get to work, because you'll ideally have a little bit more slack in your schedule. That's part of the goal that I envision for universal basic income. So you won't have to miss out on possible economic gains to go to your own granddaughter's ceremony. Joe Biden's pretty privileged. Most of the country would take a big, severe economic hit to go and attend an event like that. So let me see here. My phone is blowing up, and I want to make sure that I'm not missing any like dire messages about the stream, because the last time that I didn't look at my messages, my mic wasn't working the entire time, and I just don't want that to happen again. Everything looks okay, I believe. Yeah, all right. It all looks good. Sweet. So, oh, hey, there we go. There we go. Perfect. That's just what I'm going to leave it on. So again, It really does kind of make it a statement when Joe Biden is just kind of lackadaisically going around about this. He seems to be in the same position that Hillary Clinton was. He is the chosen candidate. As long as he just keeps smooth sailing, he'll land the nomination and the inauguration. It was very high and mighty of him to kind of say that afterwards. I love it. I love that Yang's taking the gloves off. There was a whole bunch of discussion about, let's play fair during the 2016 campaigns. And I think Bernie really did play fair for most of it. And where did that get him? Unfortunately, politics isn't really a fair kind of sphere. You've got to take your gloves off. You've got to prove to the American people that you're willing to fight for them and that you're the better choice than this other candidate. And so I'm happy. I'm happy with how that went down. I'm happy that Yang got that kind of exposure from the quote-unquote front runner. I just got to say, I started looking at some of Joe Biden's tweets today on Twitter, and like every single thing that he sends out is just met with hatred. Like, there's no kind of support for this guy. I don't know where these polls are coming from. I don't know how he's in the front of the pack right now. It's so mind-boggling to me. Ay. Okay, so with that being said, we'll move on a little bit here. I really want to get to this part. This is going to be my favorite part of tonight's show. Let's see what Trump had to say. He said something very interesting. It was a couple days ago. I meant to talk about this yesterday, but of course there was some sort of gaming convention happening and it would not let me stream. YouTube streaming seemed to have went down. I'm going to try and test out a stream on Twitch. So I could use your help in what I should call it. I've got Securing the Bags, my live stream. The Dividend Report are my post-edited videos. But I'm thinking of doing just a laid-back Yang Gang, maybe gaming channel. I'm thinking of calling it Securing the Win or Securing the Chicken Dinner. I don't know. You can let me know what you think about it. I'm going to have to test out Twitch in case something like that happens again so that we can keep on getting this content out and keep the discussion going for Andrew Yang. So, really quick here, I tried getting this thing to work. Of course, it may or may not. Anytime that I try and mess with my technological side of this stream here, it doesn't work out. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, it's not going to, but I think I'll be able to get the volume to work. I've got here is a small snippet from what Trump was saying to the media here. Let's see. One moment. Here it is.
The best thing that ever happened to the farmers is me. We gave $16 billion to the farmers to make up for the deficit with China. We gave them $16 billion. We don't give them it. They earn it because they're patriots. We gave them ethanol at 15.
Uh-oh. He caught himself. Did you hear what he just had to say right there? This is very interesting. So what did he say? He said, we gave the farmers $16 billion. I've talked about this before. It seems oddly generous, oddly kind of weirdly socialist, right? That money's coming out of some people's paychecks to get to the farmers to make up for the deficit. Sure, yeah, the deficit's hard. Maybe you could make the point that, oh, well, we had to do this because of economic hardship. Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Well, the poor have economic hardship all the time. The poor suffer from things beyond their control all the time, and we don't like to give them money. But the farmers are different because they're patriots. Well, this sounds a little familiar, if you ask me. If you recall, Andrew Yang himself has said, people will get this money because they're citizens of the wealthiest country in the world, and they're patriots, and they love the country. I think Trump makes a pretty good point here. We should be all right. You know, he caught himself when he said that. He said, we don't give them. He said, we give them 16 billion. We don't give them, because he knows, like, you can't say that. You can't say those words. Those words are a no-no, because they lift back the veil. They lift back the curtain on what's really going on. It's the fact that socialism happens all the time. This is a hybrid system. Giving money to people for nothing happens, and it's okay when it happens to the right people. But you don't want to give it to the poor. You don't want to make it, you don't want that cognitive dissonance to happen when you realize this is the true nature of the country. So, needless to say, I'm expecting Trump any day now to adopt a universal basic income, because that's basically what he's in favor of. And he said, I believe right before that, he said that he's the best thing to happen to farmers. So I can't help but agree, you know, helping people out when they need it the most, and in fact making sure that they have something to fall back on during times of hardship, is just the right way forward. And this isn't also just for the deficit with China. This also has to do with the fact that, like, for a large portion of our country right now, they are underwater. The Arkansas River is flooding at record highs. And a lot of the country who has previously said, I'm not so sure that climate change is the thing, they're now coming around and saying, I'm starting to think that something might be going on here, right? This is also one of the things that Andrew Yang is running on. Is something called the data dividend. The carbon dividend. Obviously, the freedom dividend itself is mainly running on the idea that the technological abundance we have is funding this overall freedom dividend. But there's something to be said about what's called a carbon dividend. And it's basically, you're never going to get off of carbon unless you disincentivize the use of that type of fossil fuels and things of that nature. So you put a tax on it, and then you give it to the people who are most affected by it, right? Because only really the people who are using carbon to the degrees that it affects climate change are the ultra wealthy, are the wealthy just in general. And the people who are suffering the consequences of climate change are the people at the bottom. So what you do is you'll tax carbon, hopefully to help transition over into a fully sustainable, reusable energy system. And then you take that tax and you give it directly to the people who are overall going to be affected by it the most. This is one of the things that Andrew Yang is going through and proposing on his platform. He's also in favor of the Green New Deal overall in a broad way, but this is what the Green New Deal kind of was spearheading through and through. So the farmers really are a good thing to talk about in this moment. So, hey man, just had that back and forth with you on Twitter about UBI. No hard feelings, and subscribed. We can agree on the premise, but differ on the details and how they should improve their platforms. You know, I completely agree, and Twitter's really just a bad place overall to have these types of discussions. You know, I get like very passionate about it through and through. But yeah, you know, there are criticisms to have for Andrew Yang's approach to a universal basic income, and I completely understand. That being said, the shortcomings that we can like recognize with the freedom dividend and how it's kind of approachable, it's not enough for me to like turn around and go, all right, well, this other candidate is better in this way or another. Yeah, overall, I really want to see other candidates pick it up and run with it and say, no, we need to fund this with a land value tax. Speaking of, Rez, thank you so much for providing that material. I've gotten through like the next 2 episodes on land value taxation, and it's really kind of making me think about a lot of things. I'm still a little bit curious as to how it differs from a property tax, but I guess I just haven't gotten that far. It makes complete sense to me, and I wish that there was more discussion happening just in general, because it's so missed on everyone, I think. And yes, welcome, Clint. I really do appreciate you hitting the subscribe button. You're very much helping me out. That's an amazing thing for you to do. Let's see here. So we were just talking about kind of carbon dividend there, and like that's the thing is he has platformed a carbon dividend, but he hasn't specifically funded his version of the freedom dividend with that carbon fee. So there's still more money to make and more money to go towards the overall price of the freedom dividend if we can get together collectively and decide this is what we want. Let's see here. Cambridge Analytica on Twitter, thank you so much for checking out the stream. It means so much to me that you guys are hanging out and listening to me talk. Really, I want as many people as possible to get here because this stream will get a little bit better if there's more people talking about Yang in the chat and, you know, like throwing some things off me. Because sometimes I miss some things. There's so much news going on here that it's easy to miss out. So moving on here, we've gotten done with the feud between Biden and Yang. I look forward to seeing where that goes. We're going to see some more things happen here in the weeks to come. Yang was just on The Young Turks. I'm just passing by it here. Pretty good interview there. It was just like a casual chat. I still think that, you know, something like the Joe Rogan interview is going to be a very good thing to share to people if you're interested in that. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes of today's episode, and that is the live stream, or, you know, the little seminar that Bernie Sanders had on democratic socialism today. I was checking this out at the gym and listening to what he had to say. I gotta say, man, for a good moment there, I was feeling the burn again. He is bringing up, like, the way that he can talk about the systemic inequality and the corruption and the crony capitalism, that is his most powerful tool in his arsenal. And that's going to be really the biggest obstacle that Andrew Yang has going forward, is when he brings up all of these discussions and all of these hard facts about where we are as a country, where, you know, like, even up to 93% of the country owns as much as like the top 0.1%. The numbers are staggering and makes you just cringe and feel hopeless when you realize the state of things in the world. I remember just seeing recently that like 50%, the bottom 50% of the country has a negative net worth compared to the other 50%. It's just disgusting. And it's getting much, much worse with the adoption of autonomous productivity. That wasn't brought up in this live stream that Bernie had. He kind of wrapped it up. He was saying, this is what I think democratic socialism is. This is what I platform a democratic socialist policy as. And he ended it with proposing what he calls an economic freedom, Bill of Rights. An economic Bill of Rights, with the core tenet being freedom of economic security, I believe, or I should find out exactly what the word he was using. And like I said, I was really getting into it. He's got a powerful message. He really does. But it falls apart for me when I think about what he's proposing. Outside of a universal basic income, there is no economic freedom. There's no ability to say, I can choose what I want to do of my own free will. And free will is one of those weird philosophical ideas that we could get into a long discussion about. But in comparison to a universal basic income, combined with a jobs guarantee or a robust job program like Andrew Yang is platforming, you can't have economic freedom if you still have to perform some sort of function in order to get the resource you need to survive. If you have the money and the money is needed in order to survive, and you say, I will not give this to you unless you do this thing, which then in turn makes me more money, that's not freedom. That's not. And a federal jobs guarantee, which is what Bernie's proposing, is not what that economic Bill of Rights would really be if the goal really was freedom. It would be a universal basic income. It would be everyone getting a slice of the absolute exponential abundance and wealth that our technological just explosion is resulting in. It would allow the types of work, like single mothers taking care of their children, like parents who are getting older in their age, getting some, geriatric diseases, the ability to stay with them, to take care of them. That is work. and needing to have an overarching authority or system in place to decide who works where, to make sure that they are a part of this system, that's more of a symptom of our obsession, our puritanical obsession with work, which is causing so many issues. And we need to get beyond that. We need to have the discussion about that. And I hope that that discussion begins at the Poor People's Forum. You think the DNC will try to keep Biden and Bernie away from Yang in the debates? I think that there's more of a concern for that to happen at the Poor People's Campaign because it's so like not tied to that national forum. But yeah, I ultimately do think that this message of having a random type of a random assortment of group, that it's going to be decided just by the roll of the dice. Who's going to check that, right? Or like, unless they literally get on with like one of those lottery machines and roll the balls and then go, yeah, he's here. They need to do it in a public manner like that. And if they don't, then yeah, absolutely, Yang's not going to be in a room with Biden and Bernie. Hell, I don't even think that Bernie's going to be in a room with Biden. You know, like that doesn't look good for Biden at all. They claim it will be random. Yeah, I've got little faith in that. 538 reported there's going to be 2 pots to draw from randomly. They need to televise it. They need to. And even then, I'm not going to believe it. There's so many kind of tricks that they could pull. So, who's the Asian man standing next to Joe Biden? That's exactly right. And at least that question will be able to be asked at the Poor People's Campaign. As far as I know, that's not going to be split up in any way. So that makes me very excited. All of the anxieties that I have for the Democratic debates are a little quelled by the fact that this is going to happen on Monday. Hey, Yang Gang, I definitely think the DNC still can't be trusted. Yeah, as I've said before, I think all of our kind of collective guards have been dropped a little bit. They were so shenanigan. They shenaned, and they will shenan again, I believe, going forward, unless a close eye is kept on them, unless there are systems in place to make sure that it is unbiased. I mean, they're technically not a, force for the people. They're a force for themselves and for their own goals, for what they want to be pushed forward in politics. This is not for us, the people. It's what we have to play with in order to get the notoriety. It's all a part of that veil that I was talking about. It's the system that's just been set up, and we believe it to be true. And as long as there's belief in it, that's what it is. All right, so we're talking about the main meat and potatoes, and that is the overarching kind of discussion that is going on with democratic socialism. I've got to say, it is very interesting. After I listened to this live stream, I was walking along thinking, man, the rhetoric is different than it was in 2016. The Overton window, which the concept of the Overton window, if you're not familiar, is the idea that like the range of discussion, what's acceptable, what's the extreme left, what's the extreme right, it exists in this window that we're looking through all the time, and that window can be pushed further to the left, further to the right. It's more okay to talk about socialism than it was in 2016. I think the degrees by which Bernie did an amazing job at pushing forward his image have really shown in the fact that he's no longer apologizing. Not that he apologized in 2016, but he's no longer spending as much time as he was explaining that socialism overall is a concept that has been twisted and converted. It's not what you think that it is. And here he just blatantly goes out with that message very early on. It's interesting to see the shift and the degree of that window. And I think we're going to start seeing that with universal basic income. It's going to continue to take more and more spotlight. And man, it's just a fervent idea. It's something that gets people talking about, whether you agree with it or not. It's fun to talk about because we like to talk about these things. What is fulfilling? What is work? What should we spend our time doing? Yang still hasn't signed the DNC loyalty pledge. I'm really hoping he doesn't. It's totally shady. Yeah, the optics of it, though, like we can both agree on that, but I'm afraid that that's going to be used against him. And I don't know, there were things that Hillary wouldn't sign on to as well, and she was attacked for it. So, yeah, I don't know. Participants will be selected from 2 pots of candidates, one with participants who averaged at least 2% among all qualifying polls, and one with the remaining candidates. Okay, so this is news to me. That seems a little strange. One who averaged at least 2% among all qualifying polls. Well, that's nonsense. That's not random at all, if that's the case. That is the most well-known against the others. It's the big table and the little kids table. I hope that's not the case, but Same with the YouTube, the Young Turks Progressive Pledge. Seems like a policy release from the Bernie campaign. It's definitely kind of going to greatly affect that. I pledge to do this. Whereas Yang, obviously there are like just nuances to what he believes in. The conversations that I've been having with Twitter today with people have really made me think of like, I think it's more of a messaging issue. For instance, someone came up and said, oh, you want people to choose between, being able to go to the doctor or getting the $1,000. And what I realized was that when people are always kind of heralding this idea that, oh, the social safety net is being dissolved by the freedom dividend, people think that that includes Medicare for all, the policy that Yang is pushing for. That's definitely not the case. Medicare for all will affect all of us. That's what he said in his book. I realized that it's kind of ambiguous on the website. And that's another thing. I'm realizing that it's ambiguous on, the fact that Medicare for all will be established for everyone, but also overall that the social safety net will be a opt-out of thing. If you're currently on the needs that you need, or if you're currently on the welfare assistance that you need, you can stay on that if it's not as profitable or not as beneficial for you to switch over to universal basic income. Yang said a few months ago that there wouldn't be a kids table. Yeah, that seems to be that was what I was anticipating. So to hear that from Milo, it makes me upset a little bit. I hope that's not the case, because that means that they're pulling the shenanigans. And like I said, I've been keeping my eye open for that. Boy, all right. My train of thought is starting to derail here. English words. Let me just move on over here to my notes that I've got here. Let me see. Basically, there's a cultural philosophy shift going on. Economics is a proxy, but the real argument is the value of work, how work is defined, and the measure of man, and what work and what is. What is work and what is labor? I completely agree. It is like a zeitgeist movement that's happening. And I think about Terence McKenna a lot. He's a psychonaut from the 90s. Very big into magic mushrooms and things of that nature. And as he spoke, he brought up the concept of the machine elves, which I kind of jokingly referred to in the show's intro. But I really wish that he was alive to see what's happening right now, because it does feel like people are waking up to the illusion that is cast on society as a whole, that we have these systems in place and they all seem to make sense to us. That's because we're all a little bit brainwashed into these ideas. Because like I said, it's like you can't argue that the work involved in taking care of a child and raising that child, and if it's done well, the return on the work that you've done in that manner will result in compounding and cascading societal effects, right? All it takes is one person to discover penicillin, and penicillin suddenly shifts and changes the modern medicine as we know it, and allows for the population explosion on a scale that the world has never seen before. That was one person. One person changed everything. So, it's undoubtable. And then you look at Ninja making $10 million playing video games. That's an example of the veil. That's the example of how backwards we think about things are. And it's starting to come to the front. What I'm a little concerned about is that there will be cognitive dissonance. There's a harsh reality involved with coming to terms with the fact that the world around you isn't as it seems, and it can be very difficult to come to terms with for a lot of people. And specifically, if you're more of a psychonaut in general, which I don't endorse or anything like that, but the thing about these substances are that they break down your ability to, in what you describe yourself as. I am a worker. I am a member of this union. I am a father. I am a this. It breaks down all of those personality traits about you and shows you, no, this is what you are. You're a human being in the world doing this. And that's what Terence McKenna described as what would happen on a societal scale. And it seems to be happening more and more so. I mean, just Denver, the city in Colorado the other week, has legalized the use of psilocybin mushrooms. Johns Hopkins University, or Johns Hopkins Medical, is showing transformative effects with terminally ill patients, depression, PTSD, and things of these natures. I think that technology and this overall like awakening that's happening are linked very closely, and we're going to see more and more of it. The singularity that I talk about is not just technological, it's also a combination of minds. The singularity is in first and foremost a intellectual singularity. If you think about technology overall, what technology is basically just an addition of computations per second. And from the moment that the very first technology existed, which we could think of as fire, it exists to bring human minds closer together. There are more humans that are able to exist in a proximity and survive together. And we just see that evolution over time, from railroads to, the very first Alexander Graham Bell with the phone. This gets people from further distances to get their minds to connect together, and that increases the overall intelligence. And now the global world, is connected in ways that it's never been before. And with Starlink, Elon Musk's, his satellite system providing low bandwidth internet to the entire world, you're about to get 4 billion more minds to connect to this global phenomena that we're all taking part in. So, like I said, the technological singularity is technological, but it's also a combining of minds. Let's see here. Yeah, fewer degrees of separation. That's exactly right. And I'm forgetting exactly who was pioneering this discussion. But it was a great listen, and I'll find it and link it in the description and everything like that. The only separation left is of the mind. Yeah, and this can be uncomfortable for people because ultimately the path that we're taking is one of less privacy. And everyone's got skeletons in their closets, and we have to go as far away from an authoritarian type now more than ever, because we will get to the point where our minds are connected in ways that that's the trend, right? Like I said, it's been the case. It's only going to continue where we are now. And we'll be able to communicate in ways, communicate emotions, communicate with less time. That's the vision of the future. That's what Elon Musk's Neuralink is all about, kind of. It's a little weird. It's a little weird to think about that we are kind of getting this closer. I love Andrew Yang for that reason. We need a technologically driven candidate to run for president. We need that now more than ever. That is his strength. Some people say that it's a weakness, but we need someone who understands these concepts. And I understand that Andrew Yang and like Nick Bostrom, who has really kind of coined a lot of the ideas revolving around like simulation theory and AI, artificial intelligence, have had hour-long conversation, which really shows. And that makes me believe that Andrew Yang's running for presidency because he's gone through these thought processes and he's extrapolated to the end. And he understands this is the path that we have to take. What's the path of least resistance that I can take to get us there? I gotta run for president. And that's why it infuriates me so much when I see people on Twitter go, oh, this person's just a libertarian in disguise. He's a Milton Friedman advocate, and he just wants to, further the machine, man. It's like, no, you're not getting it. You obviously haven't gotten to the point, and that's where the miscommunication's happening. That's why we're on such a different page here. Is that, like, I don't sense anything but genuine character from Yang. That's a powerful, powerful thing. And I'm worried about it because I'm just only going to be more, more attached to him as a candidate. And, he is a long shot right now, but man, he's doing so well. I'm going to be so upset if things, are rigged against him, as we may fear. Oh gosh, I just went off on a pretty long tangent right there. But it's true, like those are the things that I wish we were talking about in politics more. It's so much more interesting than the other, the bread and butter of politics as they've been. If Yang goes far, maybe even if he doesn't get it, if he goes far enough, he can change how we talk about politics for good. And that's transformative. I love that idea. I love that so much. It's going to be really interesting. And like I said, things are just going to keep getting faster. So, buckle in, man. Buckle in. It's coming. Let's see here. So, I've kind of covered a lot everything that I was really planning on talking about tonight. If you guys have anything that you were thinking about or, you know, any sort of discussion that I may have missed, there's so much going on. One thing that I see here that I was wanting to talk about, this is just going to be a rough segue. Universal basic income on relationships. And we were talking a little bit earlier in today's episode about the ways that men can kind of fall apart at the seams outside of work and meaning and fulfillment. I'm so blessed to be in a relationship. We're about 6 years now and everything. And she's so supportive of what I'm doing here and everything. But I do know that, like, if I don't make this work, if I can't follow my passion, if I can't actually go through and make this thing a reality in the vision that I have got, I've got a lot of issues concerning my fitness to work outside of this. She expects things that, you know, you have to be able to provide. Romantic gestures cost an amount of disposable income. And how can you go through as a man and kind of be that type of person who is able to compete romantically with others and express yourself in romantic gestures if you don't have enough money if you can't even take care of yourself to begin with? That's where a lot of men, especially young millennials, are right now. And yeah, you know what? Like, the involuntary celibacy movement, the incels, I know it's a huge joke for a lot of people to joke about, but it's real, and like just laughing at it's not going to make it go away. And part of a very disturbing thing about, you know, some of the more violent kind of acts that have happened are that they leave notes, they leave their own kind of manifestos, and like 9 times out of 10 they put down, I'm doing this because I'm going to die a virgin, because my advances have just not worked out. And it typically happens after a period of time that, you know, male hormones are just driving you absolutely insane. I've talked a lot about how I really hope that, like, artificial intelligence in general will help the loneliness issue, but loneliness is an epidemic. And with men, it's a very, very dismantling and epidemic. I feel very confident that the universal basic income will take steps to make that a little bit better. Have I read Yang's book? Yes, I absolutely love The War on Normal People. You need to watch it if you haven't. You know what? I'll tell you right now. If I get to 200 subscribers, we're almost there. I'll roll a quick kind of like contest. If you leave a like on a video or a comment on a video, when I get to 200, I'm gonna give out a free Audible copy of The War on Normal People to someone who may want it, or someone who wants to let another person use it. Because I feel like the more that we can get the book out will really, because it's the most powerful type of material to read to get you in the Yang Gang. You know, like, you got to take your girl out on a picnic once in a while. And guys, if you're listening to this live stream here, it can become very easy to get into a rut and to forget how, you know, to take it for granted just how important that person is in your life. If you've got the ability to go out and grab some flowers, let her know, because you're extremely lucky if you are in that situation to be able to do that. That sucks. That sucks that economics affects relationships in that manner, and we don't talk about it. This is the thing. I talk so much about the mental health crisis that we deal with in this country, and the mental health crisis is tied so it's juxtaposed right next to the economic crisis in the country. We all exist in a scarcity mindset, and we got to get to that abundant mindset as soon as possible. We have to secure that bag. And Yang Gang, you were helping me do it with this live stream. I really, really appreciate you guys joining me tonight. I've had a blast, and we've just about covered everything that I can think of tonight. I'm going to be doing this again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Please join me there. And if you look forward to seeing maybe like a gaming related Yang Gang channel, should I switch the name not to confuse people? Just a place for people to hang out, because that's what I want to be able to foster in my downtime and everything like that. Let me know. Leave a comment in the video. All right, that does it. Peace out, guys. Have a good night.